Hello, and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we delve into your childhood, find a movie, rewatch it, and have a chat. It's been a whole year that I've been gone. Muppets Christmas Carol was our final episode back in December 2017, which sounds a lot farther away than it actually was. I have been gone away a year. I've been at drama school. I just popped to Ealing for a few months, learnt a couple of new tongue twisters, and now I'm back. I'm back and I'm raring to go. So welcome back to Why This Film. You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, "What?
What am I watching?
Why this film?" And to kick things off, we have someone who helped me sort of wind things down back at the end of 2017. I'm here with Flo Benham.
Hello!
So, as I said, we did finish with Muppets Christmas Carol drinking game.
We did, and I've been hungover since then.
This entire time. I would not be surprised. We did mix Contro with tequila, which was not a good idea, as far as I recall.
You know what? I don't remember.
I don't remember. So, yes. We have come back, season 3, episode 1, diving straight in. The movie that has been chosen today is David Copperfield, 1993. IMDb describes this as an animated version of the classic David Copperfield story filled with music, colour, and anthropomorphic versions of the classic characters. How accurate would you say that is, Flo?
Well, I think it did a good job of it for about 40 minutes. And then there was a line where someone said, "Oh, you haven't heard about the cheese monster, have you?" And after that point, they pretty much were like, it's not really David Copperfield anymore.
We're taking a bit of artistic
we're
license.
taking a sidestep here, and there's a cheese monster.
It's Cheese Monster. So what's your relationship with this film?
So, I had this film recorded off the TV onto a VHS.
Classic. Absolutely classic.
Yeah, and I've had it as long as I can remember, and I used to watch it a lot, because I think I fancied the David Copperfield cat.
Oh, please don't tell me that.
And I spent kind of 10 years having forgotten about it, and then you may recall, you and I lived together in uni,
I do.
and there was a moment when I was suddenly like, I just have memories of this song that goes something
we were
like...
in the depths of YouTube, as it were, and you were like, while we're here...
Yeah, and I always had this refrain in my head of, "Welcome to my warehouse," and we found it.
We did. We found it almost instantly.
We did. Called that specifically.
Yeah, literally. And we watched that. We watched a couple of the other songs as well from this classic animated tale.
Yeah.
Not quite as memorable.
Well, it took, as I recall, we watched that, and then kind of later on I was still thinking about it.
A few years later.
Yeah, found out
we were
what
living
it was.
together again.
Yes, it's happened many times. Yeah, and so it was interesting to rewatch it.
Yes, I'd obviously seen a couple of clips from YouTube of a few of the songs. Which are bangers, I have to say.
Sure are.
They're not up there with the Disney classics. They're no Renaissance.
They might be.
Some of them, perhaps. God, where do we start with this movie?
So it was weirder than I remembered.
I'm not gonna lie. I had to give myself a bit of an interval.
Yeah.
I had to take a break.
I had to as well. This thing, I thought it was doing quite well, and I was like,
yes, yeah,
this is as good as I remember it being.
And it does start off, as you say, very close to the Dickens novel.
Truly. It's, okay, he's got a little pigeon friend in a bowler hat.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the same story, but he's a cat.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it suddenly takes this weird turn. And yeah, okay, I get that they had to skip a lot of the plot of David Copperfield.
Yeah, and a lot of it's perhaps inappropriate for children. There's a lot of deaths. I think he has 3 girlfriends before he gets to Agnes, and all of them die.
Well, he has, one of them gets scandalised, and and one of them he marries, but then she dies, and then he finally marries Agnes. Whereas
Agnes.
obviously in this one, he meets Agnes and she is the daughter of a duke.
Yes.
Bit of a surprise there.
Who runs a factory but doesn't actually...
He rents out a factory to a
merchant.
So the plot of David Copperfield from this film's perspective is on brand. He lives with his mother. His dad died before he was born, and Peggotty, and he's a creative young child. And his mother, in a bid to give him a good father figure, and because she's quite frail, gives him. She marries Mr. Murdock.
Mr. Murdock.
And he's a little more villainous in this, but that's what you'd expect. A little. He kidnaps children off the street to work in his cheese factory.
And the skies become thunder every time he's around.
It's true.
Every angle of him is from below, and he's always leering down on the camera, and it literally is raining consistently. And then he'll go off screen and the sun will come out again.
It's true.
He is beyond evil.
And he's also a lion.
He's a lion. So, yeah, really weird world. So David Copperfield and pals are
yeah,
cats.
they're all animals, cats, dogs, birds for some reason aren't
anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic.
Yes, they're not that. But they actually are just birds.
Yeah.
But everyone else is a cat or a dog or a lion
Peggotty's
or
a mole.
rat or a mole.
There are some monkeys. The macaws are monkeys.
So
Steerforth isn't in this, is he?
No, he's not.
He's replaced by wannabe Artful Dodger.
Well, do you... Okay. I'll tell the story of what it is about first, and then I'll tell you what that guy's name is.
Okay.
So it's keeping on brand with David Copperfield. And then instead of sending him to a wine factory, which is what Mr. Murdock does after quite a lot of plot, he sends him to a cheese factory. And you're like, that's cool, we can't really get into wine with the kids. Yeah. Cheese is
everyone loves
goes
cheese.
well with wine.
There you go.
Perfect. I mean, it's a little more... it's a really nefarious place.
It's illegal even by Victorian standards.
It's unbelievably evil. And he doesn't even like efficiency. When they do anything that makes the job easier and happen quicker, he just wants the children.
He just wants them to suffer.
So it's all on brand, and they're living with the Micawbers.
Yes.
And then suddenly they're like, by the way, there's a cheese monster. It's a giant vulture that flies through the sky and kills you if you run away.
Yeah.
Is that what they were saying?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it took me a while to understand the concept of the cheese monster.
It's just a fucking vulture.
It's a vulture that just sits on the roof of the factory.
Yeah. But it's a threatening presence.
Yeah, a weird noise, and they're like, "Oh, that's the monster. You can't."
That's the cheese monster.
They go the cheese monster.
Call her by her full title.
Sorry, Madam Cheese Monster.
And then it goes even more we throw Agnes in. She's not introduced in the way she is in David Copperfield.
She is so poorly underwritten, and I know we're in a 1993 anthropomorphic animated Canadian-French version of David Copperfield, but even within those boundaries, she's terrible.
But you can tell that they're meant to be together because they look the same.
She looks like his mum.
She really does. Same colour and everything.
With weird, ringlets coming out the back of her head.
Yeah. So we've been introduced to the cheese monster. As you know, there's quite a lot more that happens in the book. But according to this film, what happens is that he escapes with the help of his friend, who I won't say the name of yet. And
the suspense is killing me.
So he runs away with Agnes. Yes. And he goes to find his aunt, who hates boys, so she stormed out when he was born. But she now suddenly had a change of heart.
So suddenly.
On the way there, him and Agnes get attacked by warthogs and pushed over the edge of a waterfall by Mr. Murdock,
who's hunted them down. In order to kill them, because he's got his own shit going on with wills and factory deeds.
Yes.
And he needs David to be out of the picture, basically.
Yeah. David's mum dies just like in the book.
Oh, yeah.
But there's just all this other complex
randomly.
Stuff around it. Mm-hmm. He gets to Betsy Trotwood, rather than doing the whole thing where she's takes pity, but she's like, you must always live as your sibling, whatever.
And I shall call you Trotwood.
Yes.
Trotwood Copperfield.
Exactly. Instead, she's just instantly how fucking dare Mr. Murdock
She's like,
screw with
like,
my child.
I've been thinking about you since the day you were born. Bearing in mind the last time we saw this woman was about 45 minutes ago, where she stormed out after having a banger of a song, literally entitled I Hate Boys.
And she was disgusted with him.
Like, throwing up in the streets. And now she's just like, I'm so glad you finally made it to my house in Devon.
Yeah.
I'm going to get that Murdock back.
So she storms single-handedly into the
mate.
factory and takes down all of the guards.
Everything with, like, an umbrella, which is, like, the classic old lady weapon.
Yeah, and the plan is, I guess, just to release all the workers. David climbs up onto the roof.
Yes.
Murdock leans out the window and shouts, "Hand me that cheese gun!" And starts shooting out the window.
I've written in caps lock here, cheese gun.
Cheese gun.
Cheese gun.
He's shooting, like, with a blunderbuss, but it's like portions of cheese that come flying out.
Is it the melted cheese that's previously been aforementioned as a whole subplot? You know, the, like, evil melted cheese.
Yeah, so this is one thing I actually failed to mention when we were talking about the cheese monster stuff. We really should have got into shortly before Davy's mother dies.
Yes.
Her cough.
Of the incurable cough of death.
Yes. He finds out about the Moldies, who are a bunch of, like, weird purple things that live in the cellar.
Goo?
Yeah, as a result of a cheese explosion.
Yeah.
Who, like, became infected. And that's just a plot point of David Copperfield. And there's nothing...
There's nothing more to say about that, really.
Yeah, that's just... We all know the Moldies storyline of David Copperfield. So anyway... this is important to note because when they storm the place and after they've successfully pushed a globe of cheese on top of Murdock and Grimsby and pushed them into the river, and then some random voice, like off screen, yells, "It's off to prison with you two."
Yeah.
To establish what happened to them.
One person who's, like, covering for the rest of the voice acting. He's appearing in all the songs with his, like, weird American twang.
Yeah.
And then he's there to just be like, "It's sad now that Davy's not here."
Yeah, he's just
off
there
to
to,
prison
like...
with you. I'm exposition man.
It sucks that Jerry's mum's dead.
Yeah.
He's that guy. So he does that. The workers seize the means of production. That's what they do. And then that's sort of... Oh, right. And then the Moldies are cured by
sunlight.
Sunlight is the cure for mold.
Sunlight.
And so they're all healed.
And then it's Christmas.
Christmas.
It's immediately Christmas. And they all sing.
Which means it's Davy's birthday.
And I wrote this down. It is. I thought that as well. I wrote this down because, like, Betsy Trotwood, they did her dirty. Did they? So she's been like, I hate boys this entire time. She's been very adamant about that, but very caring for her family, very loving for her family. She lives in with this, like, Edwin wannabe parrot who, like, sounds like Edwin was the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. That sort of, like, oh God, that sort of, like, lispy,
hard
sort
to
of
listen to. That
very
parrot.
that sort of
Quite
like,
irritating.
Pre-Gilbert Gottfried Aladdin
Yeah.
parrot by about 2 years.
It's
Maybe
all
Disney,
of the same tree, though. It's that
Yeah.
annoying fucking parrot that you wish would stop.
that you wish would just shut up. And, like, he's there, and, like, they clearly have this relationship, and, like, it's fine, and it's loving, and it's lovely. And then all of a sudden, Betsy Trotwood, like, getting with the Duke.
Yeah.
I was just like, get your heteronormativity out of my shitty French-Canadian anthropomorphic animated musical adaptation of Charles Dickens' David Copperfield.
So true, because otherwise it would have been great. But
Just
that
absolutely
scene
fine.
where she cozies
ruined
up
it
to
for
the
me.
Duke, bullshit. So that is the plot of David Copperfield, as I've understood it to be for the last 20 years.
Weren't you in a theatrical production?
No,
of
I
David
wasn't. I was in
Copperfield?
Great Expectations. By the way, love that line where he said something like, "Happiness leads people to have great expectations." Loved it.
He literally looks into the camera at that point as well. So will you tell me what the name of the shirtless dog is?
Yeah, so okay, so when I was rewatching it, I was like, oh, what character is this supposed to be? I don't really, like, it could be
I assumed he
his
was
friend
Steerforth.
from the school, could be Steerforth, could be the friend who, like, was always anti-Steerforth, but, like, was, a smart person, but he couldn't get that far in the world because he had low, upbringing.
Plenty of them.
It's Mealy Potatoes, that's his name. He is a character in the book, but, like, barely mentioned. And I think it was a bit of a throwaway name, and they were like, Mealy Potatoes the dog. And I didn't clock it for ages because they keep just casually calling him, like, oh, Mealy. Oh, it's Mealy Potatoes. I'm so sorry. It's not Mealy.
Oh.
Mealy. So they keep calling him, like, oh, Mealy. And I was like, oh, Millie the dog. And then suddenly Mr. McCorber calls him Mr. Potatoes.
Oh my god.
And I was like,
it's everyone's favourite character out of David Copperfield's many, many friends from this enormous volume of text.
It's Mealy Potatoes.
It's Mealy Potatoes.
Mr. Mealy Potatoes.
The shirtless, kinda hench.
Kind of hot.
Kinda hot. I'm glad you said it before I did.
He's a very handsome dog. I mean, I know as a child I found him very irritating.
No, he's less irritating than David Copperfield himself.
This is the thing. I think as a kid I was just taking, like, the movie was telling me Davy was a great guy.
No, that's
and
fair.
all I was learning about
With
this
his
dog
acid
was
trip.
that he was, like, a bit of a smart ass. So I was like, he's kind of shit. Whereas Davy's, like, sweet and he wants to save his mum and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's only when you rewatch it as an adult, you're like, Davy's a freaking idiot.
Mealy Potatoes is where it's kind of at.
Yeah.
Because David Copperfield doesn't wear trousers for half of this. He started in, like, a full-on suit with a hat.
And then he takes his trousers off once he goes to the factory.
And he never puts them back on again. Meanwhile, Mealy Potatoes is in, like, some pretty cool trousers.
Never wears a shirt, though.
Never wears a shirt. Doesn't need to. Got a great upper body.
He's got air.
He's got, like, a bandana that he, like, uses as a
Slingshot, yeah.
And he has this little... It was great. He has this, like, artful dodger, and I mean that in the Dickens sense, and I 100% more so mean that in the, like, Oliver and Company sense, where he has this... He says the line, like, you read a lot of books, Davy, but you need to learn how to read the streets. And there's a gap, there's a very small gap. And in that gap, my brain went, if there's not a song about the streets, immediately I'm going to throw my laptop out the window.
It's such a setup of, like...
And there was.
And then Davy goes, read the streets? What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Ba-da-da-da.
And then it's... I don't remember how it goes.
You gotta be street smart.
Oh, yeah.
Quick and sly. Street smart. Like, this is the thing. I didn't realise until I was rewatching it how much I knew these songs.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was like, I know all the words to this. Everything apart from the boring love song. Which...
Oh my god, which is repeated like 3 times.
Repeats so
Always
often.
accompanied by like an acid trip where it's like previous clips from the movie.
Yeah.
And a rainbow.
Like running over the rainbow. And look, remember when you met your pigeon friend 40 minutes ago?
Which has nothing to do with what
Nothing
we're talking
to do
about.
with it.
But we need to rerun some of these clips because we don't have enough money
We've
to
recorded
create more.
this song and we didn't think about what we'd be doing during it.
Literally. And they do that like 4 times. Like they do
do.
it a lot.
My favourite thing about the first moment where he sings that, when he's locked in the tower, which already let's establish... Yeah, it's that moment. So he is being punished from misbehaving at the factory by being thrown into a tower with a bed in it and not having to work.
Yeah. With like comfy straw. And like I think his friends there.
Yeah,
with
his
him.
mate's there to chat with him.
So he's not even like alone. And he doesn't have to work anymore.
Yeah. I like when I was even as a child I was like, I feel like I
Wait
just
a
misbehave all the time.
Yeah.
Go in the tower.
That's the punishment.
But
Yeah.
so he sings out the window, and it's a heartfelt moment where Julian Lennon, son of John Lennon,
No.
yeah,
I knew I was meant to know that name.
yeah.
Because I kind of recognised the
Well,
surname.
he's incredibly famous for playing David Copperfield in '93. What's a really interesting bit about that scene is that it's played like a standard musical scene, and his girlfriend hears him singing from far away, and she's moved by what he's saying, and there's lots of just like sort of random still shots of people looking up at the sky. But then it's established really heavily that everyone literally heard him singing, and like the villains quote him several times as a joke. So he genuinely sang really loudly out the window, like, how does that song go? It's like, is there...
It's like, is there someone out there that can, like, be my lover? Or so, but it's like...
Someone to hold.
To be with forever.
It was just a really interesting thing, because they play it like a musical would in every other sense, where people don't talk about the fact that they've just sung.
Yeah.
It's clearly just a part of it. And then suddenly there's lots of weird lines where the villains are like, everyone heard you singing last night, didn't we? And it's really embarrassing, and you should feel embarrassed. And you're like, oh God, I feel embarrassed for him. That's terrible.
It's so awful. Definitely the weakest song, followed very closely by the song he sings for his mum.
Yeah, you know, I loved that as a child. And the reason I loved it is because I love the 3 outfits he wears in the imagination trip.
Right. So, do you know what David Copperfield was missing, listeners? A dragon. Do you know what we get in this version of David Copperfield? A dragon.
So to explain, it's a scene where he sings a lovely little song on the harpsichord that goes, I'll be your hero. And because we know that he loves books and he's going to become a writer when he's older, just like Charles Dickens, he sings a song, and it creates a situation where there's 3 versions of him. One of them like a Robin Hood type, one of them
Lancelot.
Yeah, and one of them
Ivanhoe.
Ivanhoe, yes.
Remember Ivanhoe?
From the Crusades?
I don't know who Ivanhoe is.
I don't know. He looked like he was from the Crusades.
Yeah.
Either way,
he's up there with like Robinson Crusoe.
You know, me as a kid, and I told you I fancied the cat, and I was like, I love all those outfits, love it. He has a little fantasy situation where he fights a dragon to save his mum.
His mum's
it's
like
cute.
Damsel. It's
a bit Freudian,
a little bit Oedipal, a little bit. Just the whole thing was just a bit like, wow, this boy really loves his mum.
He does though,
like in a way that he's envisioning her as Maid Marian to his Robin Hood. And it's his mum.
But wouldn't you do anything to save your mummy?
Yes, but I wouldn't envision her as the Maid Marian to my Robin Hood.
If she got kidnapped by a dragon, though,
yeah,
I would save my mum. Are you saying you wouldn't?
I'm not saying that at all.
Are you saying you wouldn't split yourself into 3 different versions of yourself?
Of course I would split myself into 3 different versions of myself. Lancelot, Robin Hood, and everyone's favourite, Ivanhoe.
Well, then you can relate. I agree dragon. It's not the strongest song, but that's only because there are true bangers. I mean, okay, so if we're going to rate it, I agree that the love song is the worst one, because we can't remember how that goes.
Not at all.
Not even me. I've seen it 20 times.
Yeah.
And then I would actually argue that the really short song that comes at the end after they defeat Murdock that goes, you're a big cheese now, I'm a big cheese. We're all big cheese now.
I loved that song. You're a big cheese now, I'm a small cheese now.
And no one's a small cheese, Emily. That's the whole point of the song. We're all big cheese, bigger cheese, biggest cheese.
Yeah.
No one is a small cheese. Everyone's a something. I'm sure there's more tune to it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes.
Great. It was sang by my favourite man, Norman Grulks. He was additional voices and singers in those songs.
Everybody is a big cheese. We're free. Artists making cheddar and fondue. No one's a little cheese. Everyone's a big cheese. Big cheese, bigger cheese, biggest cheese.
That would be my second song. Third song, I would probably agree it's the
mum song. No, what about the finale song where it's all like, we are a family now and it's Christmas and it's the end?
Does that even count?
The song like it was over the credits.
Yeah, it was.
Because it starts
with
a
family Christmas. That's how it goes, right? Which I didn't, I should have said, because last season you were doing Christmas things.
Yeah.
I didn't clock that this was a Christmas
white Christmas
film,
Dickens
but it
is
starts
not
and ends on a
Christmas
Christmas.
film. Yeah.
So
It's a Christmas
I was wrong.
movie. Here we are in July doing a Christmas movie. What have you done?
all I remembered was the cheese monster. So I would say, actually, no, I guess Family Christmas. You know what? Actually, I'm going to move up the mum song because we've got,
At least
Imagination.
it's memorable. What's the
So Imagination is the song that's sung. That one is American.
Right.
Don't know who it's sung by,
Probably
but some
Nicholas
American
Sparks.
dude singing it, and it's got Mr. McCorber talking over it, going, Imagination. Imagination.
If you believe in it, it will come to be. With all the fruit.
Yes.
There's another acid trip. Yeah, they went into another world where there was just fruit everywhere and rainbows. Imagination. And in the background it's like, oh yeah, imagine anything you want.
It's like, Imagination. It's good. So that was a song from the point of view of the starving, hungry factory workers about how if you just imagine that there's food, it's all going to be fine. It's another sort of acid trip thing where they just
Very
animated what they
acid-trippy.
wanted to while they sang a song.
And they were set on top of grapes.
Yeah.
Like if I was starving, hungry, grapes are
You're so angry. What if you're suffering from scurvy? You don't know their life story.
lemons that lime. It's a juicy snack. Grapes is like a grape is just water that you chew.
Grapes are nice.
Grapes are delicious. I'm not denying that. I'm
You're
just saying that
taking
they're
a
not.
lot. I mean, they've had a hard day.
I
at
love
work,
grapes.
Emily.
Yeah, and
not
they're-
getting a picture
they're
of cheese. They've been around it all bloody day. They just
They-
want some nice grapes to go with it.
No, you want some carbs. They need carbohydrates. You want a big bowl of carbonara.
Well, they were picturing. I guess they
Or
were
like
picturing
chicken.
sausages and mash at some point,
Can
weren't
I
they?
eat sausages? One of my friends is a pig.
I don't know. We definitely crossed some lines
Oh,
with
we
the
crossed
food.
some definite cannibal lines. Maybe
And
that's
ice cream.
why
They
it
pictured
was
a lot of
great.
ice cream.
Yeah, there's a lot of ice cream. Did they have ice cream in the Victorian era?
Yeah, I'm gonna say yes. I don't know.
All right then.
Yes.
Right.
I'm calling it. Change it on Wikipedia if I'm wrong. I've said it now.
Flo Benham has said now. Write into us if you know the answer. Did they have ice cream in the Victorian era?
Don't Google it though.
Do not.
I
Google.
will lose my shit if you Google it.
Only
If
yeah,
you literally
only if you
know.
off the top of your
Otherwise,
head.
just keep it to yourself.
Shut up.
More great songs. So, can I finally talk about the actual truly great songs?
Please.
What was even the point of going on about the others? Because
Please.
so we've got two. I would say two.
Right, and can I tell you exactly what I want to call the number one, but you
Yes.
might put in number two. The number one banger appears 5 minutes 45 seconds into the movie.
And that would be I Hate Boys.
That would be I Hate Boys.
I'm shocked it's even that long because so we open on
It
Betsy
should
Trotwood
open
making
with-
her way to Davy's birth, and he's just been born, and they have a bit of chat, and then she storms in. She finds out he's not a girl.
Yeah.
She loses her shit, and she sings
Loses it.
a song that still is great.
It's so good.
I mean, yes, it's a bit repetitive.
And she's great. She's played. I wrote it down. She's played by Andrea Martin, who you may know from My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah, the aunt.
And she just kills it. She's not a singer by any standards, but I'm not here to hold that against her because she's memorable. She puts her heart and soul into it. She takes what she can with these repetitive lyrics and this clunky animation, and she makes a show-stopping number.
Every word is so well delivered, but it's also really helped along by the animators, and they definitely were they were shaky on bits. There were bits that were really fucking weird. We can go into that later.
Oh, yeah.
But the animation during that song is actually it's not the best, but it's really funny.
They're
and
really
dynamic.
trying to make it comic. And
So she has great
complimentary.
bits where she sweeps all the pictures of David's dad off the desk and does a little shimmy, and it's really funny.
It's great.
And it just is. It's a great way to start it.
It's beautiful, and as she walks in to meet David for the first time, she walks past this choir that's just hanging outside the balcony, just in the snow, and they're just silent silent night, holy night. And then the minute she clicks into this song, it's so genius how it reveals itself. She starts singing, and just in the background, as you would in a song, you just start hearing this, she hates boys. She hates boys. But then it like pans out the window.
She opens the window.
And you look down and you realise the whole time it's been this choir of 3, there's like a mole, a badger and a rabbit. It's like the cast of Wind in the Willows down there, just going, she hates boys. She hates boys.
And they're doing a little boogie. It's really good.
It's so good.
I hate boys. I hate boys.
Great.
It's so good. So please tell me that that's number 1.
Well, you know what? I'm in between because Welcome to My Warehouse.
As good as each other. Because I will let you because it is yours. But I didn't, because I'd only ever seen the clip of Welcome to My Warehouse. But putting it into the context of the movie, we've just met Agnes. She's just invited us round for tea. She's fucked up in her carriage. And suddenly Mr. Murdock, or whatever his name is, who again, we will come to his voice actor in a second, grabs Davy by the scruff of his neck and is like, oh, you're gonna be here now, Davy. And the doors open and it's like, BOOM! And it's literally like when the chandelier fucking gets revealed in Phantom of the Opera, because the music starts the minute
exactly
the doors...
like that.
It's exactly like that.
And it's like a funky 80s beat.
It's like synth starts. The minute the doors open, there's like this music in the background as we're like looking around this factory.
It's
and
the disco factory.
It really is. And like he's like, you're gonna be here for the rest of your life, boy. And they start like stripping him down, and then like the tune starts coming in.
Yeah, and they start doing the like, ooh, look at his shiny shoes.
Look at his shirt. Meanwhile, it's like in the background, and then it just fucking slams in with "Welcome to my warehouse," and you just know for the next 2.5 minutes you're just in for pure unadulterated entertainment.
Thoroughly entertaining. They're like animating Davy getting like dragged all around the factory.
He gets picked up by random hooks.
Yeah, and he's probably not the strongest singer, but he pushes on every line, and particularly the word warehouse has never been so haunting yet fun. He goes, warehouse, and like you can tell he's having a good time with it.
I hope he is. I really hope he is. Like on the YouTube, I've got it up on YouTube, and it's literally entitled Warehouse.
And remember, this is the memory that haunted me from like age 11, that came to me remembering age 21. Like to be I feel like there's a film that I saw where someone goes warehouse, and this was what it was.
And this is what it was.
Welcome to my warehouse. You can live here in style.
And okay, so was it Murdock?
I believe it's Mr. Murdock and Mr. Grimsby,
which was changed
from Grimsby. You and I know our trivia, don't we?
But Mr. Murdock is voiced by none other than fucking Michael York.
Yes.
Of like Logan's Run, Three Musketeers,
Cabaret,
and
most importantly, his battle exposition in Austin Powers. It's an incredible song.
What was Michael York? Did Michael York have nothing better to do in 1993?
Well, I mean, they got Sheena Easton. What's her name? I forgot halfway through. I suddenly wasn't sure. They got a bunch of good people for it. But I feel like it's a better cast than I realised it would be, remembering it as some... Yeah. In my head, it was some really vague, mystical thing. Like, much like... I mean, you know my experience with Rosie's Walk, where it's this thing no one's ever heard of since.
If you've heard of Rosie's Walk,
write in,
email
get
us.
back to me. It did exist.
Tweet us.
Rosie Benham went for a walk. It's, from my memory of it as some shadowy thing I could like barely make out. It's both weirder but also more normal, because actually now it's on YouTube and someone's commented like, oh, I managed to get the DVD, and you're like, it's on DVD?
What the fuck?
because it always seems such an obscure thing to me.
Yeah.
But it also still has, like, I mean, I didn't remember how absurd the storyline was, and I'm still baffled by the writer, and it, like, I mean, I could sense the moment they gave up.
It's like they gave up reading David Copperfield, which is, you know, fair enough.
Well, I mean, they'd already skipped a lot, and it almost felt like they got to the point where they were like, this is ridiculous. There can't be a children's, like, movie. When we were looking at, I mean, you probably looked it up in Wikipedia as well, and when I was looking it up, it was really, it was talking about how it was a of the time history of a person, where it's sort of semi-autobiographical, and it went off in all these different directions.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you can take that. I never think that you can make that into a children's thing when he's a cat.
It's too much. It's definitely too much.
Too
like,
much.
I really get it. Pneumonia ridden.
But based in
like,
law and debt and all that stuff that Dickens likes but isn't very interesting
all
to
those
children.
Autobiographical things that Dickens was like, my dad was put in debtor's prison, so I'm going to put this character in debtor's prison.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how David Copperfield could never just go home. Because he could leave the factory to go into the streets to live with Mr. Micawber.
I wanted to talk about this. And
Where-
I guess it was, I mean, if we're taking it from the novel, I guess you could be like, well, there's nowhere else to go, he's in a sticky situation, he just needs to keep working because otherwise he'll lose his whole fortune, blah, blah, blah. But within the realms of the cartoon, where you're not supposed to understand any of that, he just keeps leaving the factory,
They're like
walking with his friend Mealy
Yeah.
Potatoes home and saying, I'm going to work out how to escape one day, Mealy.
And you're like, but you're in the streets.
Just run for it,
You're in the
Davey.
streets
You
right
just did
now.
a whole song and dance out here about being street smart, and then you're like, well, anyway, we better go back to the factory.
So just go briefly back to Street Smarts, which we didn't rank in our songs, but it's definitely number 3. Oh, it's definitely number 3.
It was a good song.
It was a banger.
Street smart.
So they've hollowed out a big wheel of cheese
Yeah.
and put a lid on it, and they've tied him up in the car so that he can escape.
And it's that classic, I love it, I live for it, I love it. Mealy is like on top of the cheese, like tightening the rope, and the driver is like, stop tightening that rope, you've been tightening that rope for ages, get off the cart. And Mealy's like, 2 seconds, I'm just checking it's tight enough. Davey, good luck, my friend. You're gonna be fine.
Good
And
luck
the
in the wheel of cheese, Davey.
the hollowed out wheel of cheese that you're currently tied into. And the driver's still there like, get off the cart! And I'm just like, no one gives a shit in this movie. No one cares.
out via cheese, that's fine.
And then Agnes is in the street. Davey! She's out on the streets, out of the gate. Davy is inside the gate in a wheel of cheese. He hears her crying, and instead of biding his time until the horse has gotten out of the gate and then getting out and saving Agnes, he decides to punch his way out of this fucking wheel of cheese, upending the cart. Thank God Mealy's there, otherwise the whole plan would be fucked.
And he's going, Agnes!
Thank God Mealy was there, is all I'm basically trying to say.
Mealy Potatoes is a great guy.
He's there for us all.
So Davy climbs up on the roof, and then suddenly the cheese monster swoops down, as happens in the book. And the cheese monster is like, I'm gonna fucking kill you! But then, because the cheese monster heard earlier in the film, in the way that Dickens foreshadows it, that when they're in the tower, which is below where the cheese monster lives, they say out loud, you mean they're planning to eat the cheese monster?
They're fattening her up.
To be eaten. And that's something that's happening, and the cheese monster hears that. So when she swoops down to kill Davy, she instead just goes, well, what are you waiting for? Run! And so he runs, he jumps onto Agnes's horse. Yeah. They gallop away, and as Murdock and Grimsby try and follow them, the cheese monster jumps down on top of them and crushes them with her big vulture bum.
I died. Just to jump back to Davy's poor mum. So she marries. She agrees to marry Murdock, and then it cuts to their wedding, and then the photographer is there, and he's like, "Smile, please," and she's like, "Oh, haha."
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, R.I.P. Clara Copperfield!
She's done well.
She's made it this far. It was so beautiful. That beautiful, incurable cough of death.
Yeah.
No handkerchief with blood in sight because it's like a U.
Yeah.
I can only assume. It's great.
Yeah, agreed. She has one little cough and you're like, oh, she's
like,
fucked.
oh,
Like,
bye,
that bitch is doomed. And she was. I kind of appreciated that they still killed her off. I partly thought it was going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
she's been kept in her room and you're not going to be allowed to see her.
From what I recalled, from the little that you told me and from the little that I'd seen of it before, I'd assumed that it was like a fake out and that she would be okay. And it wasn't until Peggotty was in like black clothes in a carriage weeping that I was like, oh, they've actually killed her.
Yeah.
Like, she actually died. Like, that's pretty dark. I mean, it was no Mufasa moment.
Yeah, in fairness, like, that's been done since time began in children's movies, since time began.
Yeah, we've always had to meet death one way or another.
But yeah, it did kind of, I think because they take so much liberty with everything else, I was like, oh, so you're actually killing Clara. It's just, you're also like, oh, but you know, it's there's a cheese
monster and the mold.
They get defeated by being put in a globe of cheese.
One last thing I need to mention that's written down here is a little meta moment where Davy and Agnes first meet. And he says, have you read The Three Musketeers? She goes, yes, of course. And he goes, I've read it 5 times. And he holds up his hand. But the animators had only drawn these animals to have 4 fingers. But David Copperfield looks at his hand, clocks that he only has 4 fingers, ignores it, and goes back to conversing with Agnes. It's so good. I was like, that is the funniest thing that's happened in this movie
That's
so far.
good.
Where David Copperfield realises he only has 4 fingers, as you may remember from the Dickens novel.
Yeah, famous.
And it's great.
Howie Mandel was a street smart dude. When I saw him, I was like, oh, it's that guy. He's in all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Didn't know that was him. I mean, that'll be his best role, for sure.
Oh, 100%. It's probably the role that he
Potatoes.
talks about all the time. That 1993 French-Canadian
David Copperfield
animated
adaptation.
David Copperfield adaptation. Beautiful. Well, thank you for finally giving me an excuse to watch this movie.
Thank you for letting me rewatch it. I think in ways I was disappointed, but in ways I was excited.
Good. That's kind of the point of this podcast.
Yeah.
So what an excellent way to kick off season 3. Disappointed and excited. Excellent. I've been Emily Slade. You can find me on Twitter at EmilySlade01, I believe. Why This Film is on Twitter now at Why This Film. It's also on Instagram at Why This Film. And it's on Facebook at Why This Film Podcast. You can email into us at whythisfilmpodcast@gmail.com if you have anything to say about David Copperfield 1993, the anthropomorphic animated musical version of the Dickens classic, David Copperfield.
And the best version.
Arguably the best.
Famously, the best version.
Knowingly, traditionally, classically, the best version. Yes, but seriously, if you watch this film as a child, I'm sure Flo would love to hear from you. Because I don't think she has many friends in that department.
Yeah, I would love to. I would ditch all my friends for people who'd seen this movie as a child.
But seriously, do email in, tweet us, Instagram us if you ever want to come on this podcast. If you ever want to do a movie, all you have to do is pick a movie you watched as a child or a teenager or a young adult. I'm not that fussy. You pick the movie, you watch it, I'll watch it. We'll come and talk about it. We'll drink a lot of alcohol. It'll be great. I want to thank Flo so much for being episode 1 of season 3.
You are so welcome.
Oh,
Glad to be back.
it was a joy. Always a chore. No?
Great, thank you.
Wait. Always a pleasure. Never a chore.
Okay,
There you go.
always a job.
It was a dream to watch this movie.
I've had a great time talking about it with you. Can we please now turn off the microphone and sing along to some of the songs?
Hell yes, we can.
Woo!
See you next time on Why This Film.
Bye.
We watched the
film and we talked about it, but now it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back again with another movie that makes you wanna ask why.
Why?
Is there anyone to guide me? Is there anyone willing to stand beside